Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. So welcome back to the Business Behind Your Business podcast, and I'm Paul Sweeney, your regular host. And today we're dealing with a topic that, look, it's an uncomfortable topic that a lot of people don't want to hear about. They'll brush it under the carpet. They'll do anything to avoid discussing it. But it's a critical thing, and I see daily, well, not so much daily, but I see regularly the impact of when people get this wrong. And it's a new phrase that's coming out, and people are becoming more and more aware of it. And you'll hear it more in your social media reports, newspapers. This whole idea of financial literacy. Now, financial literacy, it's not a requirement before you start a business, which is one of the things that is often debated about whether it should be. But currently, it's not, unless you're in one of those rare countries that does enforce that, and that is a rarity. So financial literacy is a problem, and I see it regularly in terms of the consequences of when people don't understand their finances, don't understand their obligations, don't understand the impact of the financial decisions they're making. And it's not always a pleasant conversation to have with somebody when you have to explain to them why things have gone so wrong. Now, I'm not alone in sharing my frustration that there's not enough financial literacy. Fortunately, we have some people that really care about this subject, really care about the topic, and really care about the people affected by it. And I'm privileged today to have Michelle Campbell with us, who's going to help us unpack this topic and explain why it's so important and what we can do about it. Now, Michelle, she's coming to us from some very first-hand experience, a lot of background, loves tax, loves explaining it, loves helping people, using her knowledge to really uplift people and give them a better financial basis, a better financial understanding so that they can avoid some of these consequences which nobody wants to encounter. So, yeah, I like this. She doesn't just provide tips, she's reshaping the conversation about economic stability. But I guess one of the things I really loved about Michelle, when I first met her, was how it comes across that she's not just about the numbers. She's really someone that cares about the people and, I guess, helping them to avoid those moments of distress, those, I guess, the heartbreaks that we often see. So, Michelle, look, I'm delighted to have you with us, and I'm sure our listeners are going to love hearing from you. So welcome to the microphone.
Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here as well. Look, Michelle, The whole idea of financial literacy, we were talking before about how there's no requirement for people to have it. Why is it such a passion for you? What's your story?
So for me, I've always been a numbers person. I didn't realize it growing up. And actually, before attending college, it was my least liked subject. I did not like math. And I didn't actually start doing well in math until I went to college. But I've just always been a numbers person for whatever reason. I remember as a child walking around and always calculating things. I would go through magazines and catalogs and be adding up what I was going to do. I was trying to write business plans like at the age of 8 and 9 years old, almost with that saying that business owners are born and not made. I don't really agree with it, but I know that I was born that way. And so I've just always had an obsession with numbers. And when I actually started diving in and learning tax, I was just, it almost looked like a different world. And I felt privileged to be able to understand it on a level where I would be able to effectively and efficiently teach it so that everybody else could learn it. And so my passion started at an early age, but then continued to grow, and it's still growing because I don't just stop with tax. I am involved in investments and accounting and retirement and even insurance now. And once you can understand basic concepts, I think the intimidation, or at least what I've seen, is that the intimidation in some of the clients that I work with then goes away, and they start to like it and can see the fun in it and can see how to control it. And I think that that's what's really important is there's a lot of things that hinder us from acting and from moving out of fear. But when you feel comfortable and you can understand it, you can get it to work for you. And then that fear kind of goes away because you're controlling it now.
Yeah, that fear, I've seen that fear prevent people from acting. And
Mm-hmm.
by preventing the action, they've sort of made their situation worse because they haven't lodged when they were required to. They haven't paid the taxes when they're supposed to. They haven't filed the appropriate documentation with the relevant government authorities on time because they've been fearful about not knowing what to do. But as soon as you understand what you need to do, you reduce that fear. It becomes I don't almost say fun. That's the accountants in us saying fun.
Right. Right. We're strange.
We're a unique breed. We're a unique breed. But
We
look,
are.
and for us, it is something that's fun. And I've seen a lot of accountants not understand that disconnect with a lot of business owners or people starting business for the first time, and failed to actually explain things adequately to them so that they do understand. Is that your experience as well?
It is very much my experience. And I remember when I first entered the industry and I would get criticized for how long I would spend with clients explaining. But it's because I did not just feel comfortable. One, I didn't feel like that was my job just to give you results. I mean, anybody can do that. I constantly say there is no finesse to the way that someone prepares a return. It's all of the work that's done behind the scenes to control the numbers and then understand them. That's the mastery. But I would get like criticized that, you're spending too much time. But I wanted people to really understand how each line works, what works for you, what works against you, what you can work on. It's too late to do it right now because the year is over, but this is what we can work on throughout the end of the year. And I was just I'm still amazed of the people that just don't understand the very basics. I'm like, this is your money we're talking about. You know how to add up your paycheck. Why don't why don't you understand just the very basics of how the tax is calculated on it? Or even, in your field with accounting, just how the numbers add up. What's the difference between a liability and an asset? So I like to teach and I like for people to understand because I feel like that's what adds the value.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Certainly, it's a big, I guess, a really key role, and something that I see really important is how you communicate that to a client. Just recently, I spent a couple of hours with a client explaining the difference between profit and cash. Not just the difference between profit and cash, but explaining, okay, why is this saying a profit and that's saying no tax, and then where is the money gone? Where's the money in from the bank account? So understanding the effect of you've raised an invoice, but it's profit, but why don't you have cash in the bank? What's the implication there?
Right. Right. It's those little technicalities. And I know that jargon can really confuse individuals, but if you just get rid of the jargon and find your way of explaining it. I use a lot of, depending on who I'm talking to, a lot of different scenarios that are real life scenarios without even mentioning tax or just different processes, even in accounting and investing, just to get people to look at it a different way and not be so intimidated by the word liability.
Yeah, well, you mentioned jargon, and I think people switch off as well. And I think one of the dangers that I'm now seeing, which has evolved as we've become more global, is people are hearing jargon from a particular area, so maybe from a particular country, because of somebody they listen to, and when they try and understand their local laws with that jargon, they get very confused because they don't
Hmm.
understand the difference. Now, you're in a unique situation because, okay, you're coming to us from the United States, but where are your clients based?
I have clients all over the world. I have clients in 6 different countries: India, Japan, Canada, Belize, Brazil, and Spain. And all over the United States, not just in the Southeast where I'm located. So I find it fascinating. I every year try to find something to challenge myself with, a different topic, a different country law, a different state law, something, and I'm doing that without even trying. I don't even know how that happened. How I mean I I've gotten too many referrals to count, but I will say that I've had clients that of course I met in person, face to face in Georgia, and then they moved somewhere else and then we just kept in touch. And so now we work remotely, and, I'm up at 10 o'clock at night because in Japan it's 11 a.m. So, which is fine.
Yeah.
But, it just makes it very interesting. But I mean, it's made me more diverse, and it's forced me to up my game.
And that's a great thing for, well, not just for the people you work with, but for you. And also, look, you shared a lot of your experience and a lot of the lessons that you've learned through a book that you've just published.
Mhm.
Do you want to explain a little bit about why you've written that book?
So I wrote the book because in that moment of truth where you just have to be honest with yourself, you have to admit, okay, there is a problem. I want to fix it. I don't like this. I don't like this life. What do I have to do? What should I do to fix it? What can I do to fix it? I realized that the first thing was just the lack of knowledge about finance overall. When I was little, I remember being encouraged to save money, but why? And what do you save it for? And it was always, oh, everybody has a piggy bank. You put money in the piggy bank, you save it. But I never learned about interest. I never learned about the value of saving. I never really learned about emergency fund. I didn't learn about those things. And so, in that moment of truth that I had when I opened years of unopened mail, just because I knew I couldn't pay the bills. And I was like, okay, I have to face this. I want to. I never meant to not pay someone. I just couldn't because living was too important for me. I mean, I needed to make sure that I had a roof over my head and food and a car to drive to work and a job. I could not worry about a credit card that was not going to keep me alive. But it took me days to go through all of that mail and organize it and put it in a spreadsheet. And I was just looking like, oh my gosh. But if I would have known not to do this and to do that, if I would have known different things about budgeting, saving, investment, and just the huge no-nos of finance that like little kids should know, I might not have been in that situation, but it actually empowered me. And it felt extremely purposed because those are the very people that I help now. And there would be no way that I would see a problem in the system and just in society or be able to relate to them if I hadn't been through it. I feel like people now are they I have the ability to make them feel more comfortable because they know that I've been through it too. I can relate. I'm the epitome of someone where yeah, she went through it, she got through it. Okay, so I'll listen to her.
Yeah, and that's incredibly valuable, and thank you for sharing that. I'm really appreciative of it because it's not always comfortable to admit those things. I know that we don't like to admit our failures, particularly when we're coming from a point where people expect us to be the experts,
Right.
and to have all the right answers. But
Hmm.
to actually understand why it's such a big issue because you've lived through that,
Hmm.
I think that is such a powerful story, and I'm really glad that you're sharing it with us today, and your clients and our audience here today. I'm really glad that you're sharing it because it shows a lot of understanding, and I think that's really powerful.
Hmm. It's just all about being honest. And it just makes me laugh because now with social media, and, it's, in my opinion, a lot of it smoke and mirrors where someone's life looks a certain way, but actually, probably underneath it all, it's not that. But you're able to do different things on video. You're able to get uh I don't know, deals to travel, but what if they're in debt because their credit card is all, racked up from doing that travel? And so I just when everyone's claiming, I guess, that they are keeping it real. I'm thinking, no, hardly no one is, because no one will walk up to you and say, my car got repossessed today, or I'm running a negative balance in my account, so I can't go to lunch. No one's going to tell you those things. And that's honesty. And that's what I wanted to share about myself. And those are the conversations that we should be having, because those are the very things that connect us. Everybody has been or will go through something financial. It's just real.
Yeah, yeah. And so, Michelle, with your learning or going through that process, is that when you worked out that you needed to understand more about how finances worked and how the tax system worked and what your obligations were?
That's not when I figured out that I needed to understand more about it, because I've always understood it. I just was not applying it because I was in this cycle of survival. So it's almost like everything that I knew went out of the window and I couldn't apply it. I didn't know how to apply it in the face of trauma. Like, it's almost like someone telling you, like, if all your bills are past due and someone's standing in front of you saying, invest, you're
Yeah.
like, what?
Right.
How?
Yeah.
More of it is how. So, and I just, because I understood it so well, I knew how to apply it, and I was able to turn my life around. I wanted to then just let people know that it's possible. Everything is seasonal, and you don't stay in seasons forever. And so there is a way to get out of debt. There is a way to still invest while you're in debt. There is a way to just change your relationship with money so that you view it differently and that you value it differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you're meeting with people who are perhaps in a similar situation to what you've just described,
Mhm.
what's the trigger that's brought them to that point generally?
Typically, just not having a emergency backup fund, or not budgeting ever. And so it's the lifestyle of living paycheck to paycheck, or feeling like, well, I have the money, I can spend it. I can't, live every day like it's his last. All these cliches that, yeah, maybe you should do that, but you got to be realistic too about bills. And so, I mean, for me, I would be doing well, and it would be one thing that would happen that would just throw me under, because I didn't have the emergency savings. I wasn't even thinking about that. And back then, at that time, I wasn't even considering investing, partly because I didn't know how to invest then. That's a recent, like in the last 10 years, I would say, endeavor that I took upon and learned, and it that shocked me in itself, because I thought that you had to have a lot of money to invest. I thought it was extremely complex to learn. And it is the opposite. Exactly, the total opposite, where you can start small, and there are different risk tolerance levels. I didn't know about that. But yeah, it was more of that total realization, bringing it all together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the situation we've got at the moment, we're looking at a lot of business owners, a lot of people who have run down their emergency fund to zero
Hmm.
over the past couple of years. And then, as a way of running down that emergency fund, they've neglected to do things like pay taxes. They keep putting off bills and stuff, and they're not thinking about investing. They're thinking about survival, how they get through the next period. It's a tough situation to be in. It's also a tough situation to admit that you need help.
Hmm. I noticed that. So it's not really an old school way, but the old school way of starting a business. Oh, do you have a business plan? In banks, to get financing, they do require it still. So it's not old school, but I'm just saying that that is almost step one. Get your business license down. And I think that gets overlooked and understated, because now Chat GPT will type you up a business plan, but that is your roadmap. And the business plan, a accurate and a well written business plan, has financials in it. And if you follow that financial path of making sure that you have enough capital, making sure that you have the emergency fund, not to say that there won't be challenges or that your business still might not make it, but That's exactly why my businesses didn't make it, is because, yeah, I wrote the business plan, but I didn't follow the financial structure that was put in place.
Yeah.
Because, it's different when you start getting the money in your hand and making money, and you're independently working for yourself, and you just feel empowered on a different level. And it's like, oh yeah, what budget? Like we've got plenty until something happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see a couple of common things happen there. Well, one is a lot of businesses don't actually have a business plan because it's so easy to start a business without one these days.
Right.
The second one is that the business plan only looks at one scenario, which is the best scenario. And they don't actually look into the factors of, well, what happens if we don't get revenue for a certain period, or what happens if our revenue is only half of what we expect, but our costs are going to be the same? How are we going to get through that? And I
Mm-hmm.
think the third one is that when that first payment comes in from that customer, it's almost like all the background work that you've done disappears because you've got that excitement about getting that money in your hand,
Mm-hmm.
and all sense and logic and reason just disappears at that point.
Right. I've seen a lot of business plans that don't include financials. And I'm like, I mean, so everybody can write a dream on paper and actively start going to do it. But that dream isn't going to carry forward the business. That's just the idea, that's the inspiration, that's the vision forward. But how are you going to orchestrate this vision and make sure that not only you sustain yourself, but then you continue to grow? And that's where the financials come in. The estimated profit loss statement, and the estimated balance sheet, and the budget. How much is it going to cost to run this business realistically, and account for the unknowns, because there's always going to be some unknowns. No one knows everything about anything, and you don't know what you don't know. So that fund kind of needs to be healthy, so that when, oh, I didn't realize that we had to have sales tax too, and oh, I didn't realize that we had to file quarterly returns too, and so you can cover those things.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I often see when clients prepare business plans to start with is they, as you mentioned, they're not aware of some of those additional obligations, those lodgements, or the timing of them.
Hmm.
But I think one of the other things that I'm big on is the need for accountability. So you mentioned that you had a great business plan, but you didn't apply it.
Hmm.
Um, and look, we're all guilty of that at times. But I see a lot of people that come up with a business plan, but there's no accountability, no check-in. You're like, how are you going on this? What are you doing? Did you actually follow your plan? What do
Right.
you need to adjust? Now, is that something that because you seem to be quite actively involved with your clients, are you
Hmm.
providing that accountability check-in for them?
I'm not providing an accountability check-in, or at least I don't see it that way, but I am asking the questions that they need to consider. And I'm telling them the repercussions of what they're doing, what they should be doing, and what's going to happen if they don't do something or change something. And so I just ask the questions to almost plant the seed of, either they're going to go and do it on their own, or they're going to need my assistance, which I'm more than happy to assist with. But, almost, are you registered correctly? Because I've met a lot of new business owners that are not registered correctly. You know, Creating a business name and having a website does not make you a legally registered business.
No, we've seen that. Oh, I've seen that so many times, and just this week, I've had the instance of somebody thought that a letter that they received was issuing them a business license, and subsequently they found out that no, they're not actually got a business license. It was actually requiring some additional information,
Mm.
and they've been trading without a license for a couple of months, which is, well, there's a whole lot of risk there because you're not covered by insurance. Um, but making sure you actually understand and checking the credentials. You and I were talking before we started recording about the need to check the credentials of the people you're dealing with, not just from a tax point of view, but also from, are they actually licensed to do business?
Right, right. Overall, do your homework, do your due diligence, never believe in just an umbrella. It doesn't matter who somebody works for. Always check them out, because if they really are registered, if they really are licensed, it's every main profession, especially, and you know this, in the financial industry, you're listed somewhere, just like attorneys. If you are a licensed attorney, you're listed somewhere. So same with all of us. You can find out, and so you should just never trust in the umbrella, and yes, do your own due diligence, find out about the person, and those things are some of the things where it's fun to be a business owner, but that's the not so fun part. It's not fun doing your own homework. It's not fun figuring out how to fill out the financial statements, to project income. Actually, that one is kind of fun because, oh, look at how much money we're going to make. But the budgeting one and the financing one, and those ones aren't fun. And the different state and city and county processes of actually becoming registered for your type of business, because it's different. If you sell something, then there's another avenue that may include sales tax. If you are someone that has a specialty licensing, like a nurse or a doctor, then there are some other hurdles that you have to jump, unlike someone that just starts like a t-shirt company. So it's doing that due diligence. That is what goes into a real legit business plan. And so, I mean, it should always be step one. And I think that first, like, some individuals dig their own graves by not doing that. They just jump into, I'm going to start selling t-shirts.
Yeah. Yeah. So financial literacy, it is a bit of a broad topic. It's not just the accounting. It's not just tax. It's a lot more to it than just a few numbers on a page.
Right.
But it's important to get advice. It's important to work with somebody that does understand your requirements, does understand the laws, and can give you proper advice. And Michelle's certainly somebody that's passionate about that. So look for somebody, if not Michelle, look for somebody like Michelle that does have that passion, is registered appropriately in your jurisdiction, the area that you're working in or plan to work in, because you might be going cross borders. Do your homework, but if you're not sure where to start, reach out to Michelle, get a copy of the book. And the book's called Bluebird.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a reason why we call it Bluebird?
So my publisher actually renamed it. I named it 21 Years of Suffering in Silence, but I was told to change the name to Bluebird would make it more marketable. And the reasons that they gave were valid, but there's a story or a scenario in the book, a conversation, let me say, that my mom and I had when she dropped me off at college. And she said, when you look out of the window and you see a bird flying around, you don't really pay much attention to it because it's just a bird. But the day that you see a bluebird, you kind of look at it a little longer and admire it, not because you don't like it, but because it's just unusual and not something that you see all the time. You're the bluebird. So they decided to use that title. I was fine with it if it was going to make the book more marketable, because the reality is true. They said, if you go to a bookstore right now, there's 21 ways to do this and 10 reasons to do that, so, with Bluebird, you might just pick it up to, what might this be about? And there are some very diverse topics in there, and a lot of things that people just won't tell you about themselves. But I just wanted to be transparent and let the average person know that whatever it is you're going through, that you can make it to this life that you've always wanted. But it all comes down to your financial health. And that's where financial literacy comes in. You have to admit that you don't know everything that you thought that you know, or you think you know, and reach out for help. There are people like us that are waiting, happy to help you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great to hear the story behind why you're so passionate about it, and great to see that you are so passionate and helping so many businesses to actually understand the financial side of it, to understand that to achieve that financial literacy is a key criteria. I really hope that more and more business owners or potential business owners do take the steps to become more financially literate and avoid some of the issues and the pitfalls that we've discussed today. A great place to start would be to get a copy of the book, Bluebird. We'll put a link to how you can purchase that in the show notes. We'll also put a link to how you can reach out to Michelle and find out more about her and her services. And look, I've really enjoyed this conversation today, and it's been really helpful. If you believe that you know somebody that could benefit from hearing this conversation, please share it with them and help them understand more about some of the really important topics that they need to be aware of when they're running a business. Michelle, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us on the microphone, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favourite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.